A very good evening to you and welcome to Crime Must Fall Show. This is the third episode of this show that focuses on bringing to you matters and issues that concerns crimes within and without Kenya. And tonight we focus on sexual and gender-based violence. On the show we are joined by Dr. Kirimi Arimi. Dr. Kirimi Arimi is a criminologist and a clinical psychologist who is in charge of training and capacity at the Professional Criminologists Association of Kenya. We are also joined by Advocate Lydia Muthiani. Advocate Lydia Muthiani has got 12 years experience in human rights law, especially focusing on women and child rights. We are also joined by Dr. Mirna Kalsi. Dr. Mirna Kalsi is a forensic specialist who deals with matters forensics with a wide experience both within and without East Africa. Join us on this show tonight as we focus on this matter, looking on what we left at last time. Zipporah Nderitu, who is a superintendent, took us through what the police indulges in towards finding solutions. We also had Mr. Edwin Agasa, who took us through on matters to do with criminologists. We also had Advocate Christine Awino, who took us on the matters to do with legal. But tonight we still have a legal expert to help us understand that when evidence has been gathered, as it goes to the forensic processes and also on the clinical psychologists, where do we focus and where do we find solutions? My name is Cornelius Omuse, and remember, this conversation is also live on our Facebook page, CAC TV Kenya, and our YouTube channel is CAC TV Kenya. Join us as we find solutions to these problems. Welcome, ladies and one gentleman, to Crime Must Fall Show tonight. And briefly before we go on, we take keen interest on the feedback of our audience, those people watch us outside there. And what we've gathered, a number of them have wanted to understand what is PCAK and their role in this. So we'll invite Dr. Kirimi Arimi in 1 minute to tell us what is Professional Criminologists Association of Kenya and their role towards combating crime in Kenya before we focus on our tonight's topic. Welcome, Dr. Arimi.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cornelius. I'm glad this evening to be here to talk about PCAK. PCAK is PCAK. This is Professional Criminologists Association of Kenya. And this is a body that is almost 1 year old since registration last year in July 2019. Now the reason for having PCAK is that the field of criminology, this is now all those who practice criminologists. And I always say that the bulk of our members are the National Police Service. They fight criminology. We have lecturers who teach criminology, like us. We have medics who deal with the forensic pathology. We have criminal lawyers. We have the detectives. We have all of these ones. Security management team. They are members of PCAK. They are criminologists. Therefore, this body was formed so that it can take care of the professional needs and even the welfare of criminology. We never earned anybody to take care of them. Actually, they were orphans. But when PCAK was formed, now we have a body like we have lawyers having LSK, we have Nursing Council of Kenya. All this body now, every criminologist, a person practicing criminologist in this country, the body for that person, professional body that can testify on behalf of him. Even when employment is asking for what is, do you have a letter from the professional body? Everybody practicing criminology must know that the body is Professional Criminologists Association of Kenya.
Yeah, and then lastly, the motivation factor, the motive behind your activities. What really drives you to this direction?
The reason is this. There are very many, in these professional bodies. Like, let me give an example of our friends lawyers. If they are not given a letter of practice, they cannot practice. Now the criminologists now have somebody to license them and say that these ones are fit to practice. Because, if somebody is not approved, then can do messes up there. So to safeguard on this work of criminology, we have to license them. We have to talk for them. Like in any forums where somebody is talking about criminology, even during hiring of people in criminology, PSAC should be involved because it's the body with that mandate. Otherwise, it would be a big omission where things are being done out there and PSAC is being left out. So we exist now 1 year old, and everybody must know this is the body now that is really there for professional criminologists in this country.
Many thanks, Dr. Kirimi and Rimi. Let's get to hear from Wakili briefly, and also from Dr. Myrna Khalsi, to tell us if indeed they agree with us that during this period where majority of the people within Kenya are trapped within a lockdown, if indeed the rate of sexual and gender-based violence has gone high. Beginning with Wakili.
Thank you very much, Cornelius. That's normally a very difficult question to answer with regards to what comparator do we have, because we're talking about an increase in the cases of gender-based violence which have either been reported or which now people are projecting that they have increased. Now, to be honest, in all types of emergencies, you would find that gender-based violence does increase. So that is something which was projected. For instance, because of what COVID has done, it has put people in more vulnerable positions, socioeconomic positions. So there is a projected increase, for instance, in child marriage. The fact that people have been constrained within their homes, which increases the stressors and the push factors within the household, then you would have an increase in domestic violence or intimate partner violence. We've also seen cases of sexual violence whereby we had, for instance, I read about a case where a girl was taken in as a sexual slave for 3 days because a person stated that since they could not travel up country to have sexual relations, or maybe not, other people maybe are not able to go to places where they could take advantage of girls maybe who are inebriated, then that becomes an excuse to violate women and girls. However, with regards to the increase, there have been reports. I mean, the judiciary did report that there has been a spike in the number of cases which have been reported and which are being handled within the judiciary as it is. And the Chief Justice stated this on 1st of April 2020 and put the statistic at 35.1% of the cases which were being handled within the courts as those of sexual and gender-based violence. And we also have other agencies, for instance, FIDA Kenya and the Nairobi Women's Gender Violence Recovery Center, stating that on their hotlines they have recorded an increase in the number of cases. But I would still pose it, even though we do project that there is an increase, definitely it does show that there is a need to ensure that data collection systems are strengthened, right?
We'll come into that.
Okay.
Wakili, let's hear from Dr. Myrna Khalsi, also from where she sits, not actually there. Also, whether you've come across a projection of an increase in the cases of SGBV within the Republic of Kenya.
Okay. I think Lydia has really elaborated well about this increase in, or rather this projected increase. I think maybe I would just mention one situation is where we had this allegations of that there was data that said that there have been like 4,000, almost 4,000 pregnancies in the eastern part of Kenya, and what I would say was, I could almost be at the forefront of, was information of whether this is actually real information or not, whether these are duplication of like the same person visiting the hospital like for follow-up visits being documented as a separate person. So I think there is definitely a challenge with data management, and the lockdown just simulates what could potentially happen when you have an election. Does any kind of situation where access towards the victim or the survivor or the perpetrator is limited for proper forensic management of that case.
Many thanks, Dr. Myrna Khalsi. Now, there's a common saying which says that the two cannot move together unless they agree. What has happened here tonight is that we are both agreeing and coming to that sense that indeed something is not right somewhere when it comes to cohesion, mutual cohesion, especially during this time that people are trapped within a lockdown, and even that is what we established last week. Tonight we come into this matter that cases have happened girls have been defiled, even some of the boys have been defiled, that those ones who've been beaten in marriage. I know more focus has been put on women, but even that those men who have found themselves into these troubles. But as this happens, there is this aspect which Daktari, as a clinical psychologist, stands in a better position to elaborate it, the issue of victimization and survivor psychological trauma. That someone has gone through it, but after going through it, you find these people again being under psychological trauma and people are victimizing them. Daktari, to bring to us what is this causing the victimization before we look on how to get over the psychological trauma.
Thank you so much. The issue of victimization, definitely we define victimization as just singling out a particular person to raise trouble or what is it, trouble on that particular person by just singling out the person, and or cruelty to the person. Now this time we are in the COVID, people are locked, in their places. And let me say, Cornelius, that there is no justification to raise trouble or cruelty on person. There's no justification, even if the circumstances are as whatever. You don't have any right over the peace of a person. Because now we realize that people will target women and, the girl child and even children. So, because there is no justification, we call it a crime that was there. People should not hide under COVID and COVID. So we realize that these people have been abusers even from the beginning. Because do you want to tell me that now that they have come together is when this violence has come? No. Well, when people are going out, the women, some of them could escape and then go to work and then come. This man couldn't go and get lost somewhere else. But definitely if it is the man has been an abuser. If it is the lady has been an abuser. But this time, because they were locked together, nowhere to run away, they took an opportunity. So in criminology, in fact, we talk about activity theory. It's a triangle where we say that for crime to happen, there must be first of all, there must be a suitable target. Then there must the other side, there must be an offender who is ready to do crime. And there must be a guardian who is, the absence of a guardian who is not, the guardian is not there. This guardian is capable of preventing this crime. But this time, the absence of the guardian, and then the perpetrator is there, and then there is that suitable target, then the crime happens. So these people found that there's no capable guardian, and they try now to risk crime on somebody. That is it. So there is that victimization as a result of being a woman. And that's why when we talk about gender-based violence, gender actually is not male or female. Sex is defined biologically by either you are male or female. But we found there are some people even with the biological, organs, yet they are not, they are the other side, they are called transgender. It's a man who is a transgender woman. So we say gender is either man or a woman. But sex is either male or female. So now when you say in gender-based violence, somebody is being attacked simply because because the person or because of the gender. Now, like women now, because you are a woman, must you live in your house as a fugitive? Because you are being targeted every other time. That when there's an opportunity, you'll be battered, you'll be cut into pieces, you'll do whatever, you'll not talk. Yeah? Is this the society that you're propagating? I don't know why this, because you are a woman, you are anxious that any time trouble may come. Why do we have laws? The other day somebody talked about monkeys.
Just to cut you short,
Yes.
Daktari,
Yes.
what a focus comes from you as a clinical psychologist
Yes.
is this aspect of victimization.
Yes.
Who is this being victimized in this context during this lockdown period and even before?
Well, it is a gender. And this gender, it is
Which gender?
either man or a woman. It's not male or female, it's a man or woman, which is based on laws that people do.
Yes.
So now this one being targeted at this time, it is where we are saying, must somebody live as a fugitive in a country where there is freedom? So that now, because of who you are, when you see a girl passing that way, this one must be raped. Even if it's a woman, must be cut into pieces or something like that. So that's why we are saying it is a crime, and as a PSAC, we look at it as a crime against humanity, which must not be let like that one. So victimization, they are being victimized because of that. Sexuality, now let me talk straight about sexuality. Sexuality now was seen, like now with these young people of high schools and girls, we are talking about many pregnancies and something like that.
We'll come into that
Yes.
as you'll be splitting into
Yes.
pieces, the sexuality and all those factors.
Yes.
We come to Dr. Myrna Kelsey on matters forensic, especially as things have been happening now and before. When these matters are happening, where do you come in as a forensic scientist? Because people get those issues, they hear it from court, we don't want to get it from the lawyer, she will tell us at that level. But now you as a specialist in forensics, where do you come in to help on these matters as they happen in society?
Okay, so first of all, when you have the situation of a lockdown, access is a challenge. But for forensic practitioners, you have to get to the position where you and the crime scene that you're processing are in close proximity to be able to do the examination, the documentation, the interpretation, the analysis, and then the presentation of those facts in court. Now for, let me just explain. The chain goes that you first have to identify, you have a crime scene, whether that is the victim, or you find the non-state sector likes the term survivor. We say victim because the victim may be actually living or deceased. And then you have the perpetrator. So once you are in the position where you are with either one of the three, then you have to identify, what is the evidence, what is you actually have, first of all, have to understand the history of the case. Then you need the ability to identify what is forensic evidence. Then how you collect that forensic evidence. You need the capacity to be able to understand, what is entailed in its preservation and its analysis, and where will that analysis happen, and along all these steps, there are standard operating procedures. And then once the analysis and the interpretation is complete, you write a report, and then you have to present that report in a courtroom as an expert witness.
Yeah.
So you see, as a forensic practitioner, there are quite a number of steps. And the field of forensics is wide. So for example, if you're in an examination room with someone who has, for example, gone through an incident of a sexual offense, then, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. But anyway, once you're with that, sorry.
It's all right. Let's come
sorry, I
to
just had a bit of a blip.
to Wakili, and let's see.
I don't know if I've answered the question though.
You've given us the breakdown, but we'll be coming back to you to tell us the policy environment that the forensic department or forensic specialists operates, especially here in Kenya and also in East Africa.
Okay.
Wakili, we want to see some of these intricacies. As Daktari has explained, that indeed we have victimization of particular gender or particular affiliation in the society in terms of how God made them. As we've gone to the forensic expert, she has given her part. Now the intricacies that comes to you, because you people interpret the law, saying that we have seen it from the psychologists, we have seen it from the forensic people, but here it is. What are some of these intricacies that comes along on matters to do with the gender-based violence in matters to do with investigations?
It's a very wide question, right? I'll do my best, and especially just holding it at investigations aspect. What Dr. Kiremi is saying, and is something that we definitely have to get right, is that you have to think about the root causes of gender-based violence to be able to understand it. Gender-based violence is violence because somebody is, for instance, a woman. And when he uses the word man or woman, we're talking about the social meanings of what that means. Because we have socially ascribed roles, attributes, opportunities, for identities. Somebody will say this is not a very feminine person. That means you would be discriminating against a person just because they do not meet your standards or what society has told you. So that's a particular intricacy. Understanding that gender-based violence in itself is a human rights violation, that's where we start. Because you have to think about it from a human rights aspect. The way he explains it, for instance, a woman is supposed to dress in a certain way. Yeah? You have to be covered up. But then we've had how many cases of women being stripped and being raped, sexually assaulted. Even we had the awful videos which went round about a woman who was sexually assaulted inside a matatu when people were watching. But it was just because she was there as an opportunity. Other women were stripped naked. As he had said, there are girls who apparently, as you're just walking around and somebody wants to exercise power and control, then they decide that you are something to be used, right? So that's the first intricacy when you're thinking about investigations. And it's something we have talked about when it comes to building specialized capacity within investigators to understand the nature of gender-based violence. Because first, it is a human rights violation, and then that human rights violation is criminalized. That's the first intricacy. Yes.
Thank you very much. Now, we get into these aspects that all of us have come to an agreement that indeed there is rise on these cases of sexual and gender-based violence. And Dr. Kirimi, as a clinical psychologist, after someone has been assaulted physically, either through rape, through battering, through all those sorts, psychological torture, emotional, and all that, we want to see some of your steps as a clinical psychologist, the advice and the steps that these people have to undergo in order to see that they overcome trauma.
Thank you so much. When we talk about that trauma, you know, in medical terms, Dr. Carlson will talk about, you know, that physical injury they see. But when we talk about trauma in psychology, it is that psychological injury that one gets. Now, this person being violated is undergoing a great loss in esteem. Can you imagine you are being reduced, now you are raped out there, or you are attacked, you lose your arm. The body image that you used to have that was commanding respect and giving you confidence to walk is already not there. You are undergoing a loss. So to you, that one goes inside. It starts affecting you from inside. You lose value. And that's why some of them, they enter into a triangle that we say it is a triangle that precedes suicide. This triangle is worthlessness, somebody feels worthlessness, or worthless, then hopelessness, saying that there is no hope, helplessness. When you're in that triangle, we call it Beck's triangle in psychology, that is now when depression comes to you. And depression is not when somebody, you know, some people say, I'm tired, I'm depressed. You know, depression in clinical terms is a syndrome. It is not just a single thing. There is a loss of, what you call anhedonia, loss of, interest in many other things, sleep disturbance, all those ones. And when the brain cannot think, you can't work, you are inactivated. And so when they get into depression, now they say there's nothing about me because now worthlessness has come. So what do? They go and commit suicide. Now we come in here, we intervene, because at perception level, we want them to have positive mental attitude. Because the moment we just go to them and tell them the dignity is there, you are still a human being. And we do that through the process we call psychological debriefing. It's a process, actually, I cannot describe it right now here, but it's done 72 hours after the effect. And therefore, you are helping them get rid of that. Because it gets into you now, and it starts leading you. That's why that trauma comes to you, and this trauma is unique to individuals. What can traumatize you is not what can traumatize me. It depends on the appraisal that I give to the situation. The same situation may have different effect because of the brain appraisal. We clinical psychologists, we are on brain science so much. So then, this trauma they get is in three, and I'll just mention them. One is what we call acute trauma. This acute trauma is as a result of one incident. But this incident can live with you forever. So we tell people to talk about it because the moment it is in you, it is affecting you and triggering the hormone in a way that we call psychoendocrinology. You know, we study the brain and the effect of the hormones, psychoendocrinology. So that is how we get to understand that effect. So the acute, that is one incident, like one incident of violence, that one can remain forever. So we help them to take it out through speaking. Women normally cry, and when they cry, they also they get rid of that energy. The other one is chronic trauma. This chronic trauma is as a result of every time wakati anaingia, they say the woman or the man is beaten, is done whatever, they have to what are certain. So that is chronic now, trauma. Then we have complex trauma, and that trauma is now as a result of many things. You are beaten, you are abused, even financially. There are a concussion of many things affecting you. Now, if you look at a human being who is being subjected to that, though living in a country full of freedom, is a fugitive. And you don't expect this person to exercise their potential.
Now, you've given us that part.
Yes.
The focus here is now, how does this person help themselves? And I think before we break, we are looking at some of the comments here. Someone is talking of women are to blame because they're demanding more than income. I think that is what Nyongesa, all the way from Kisumu, is commenting tonight. And we also have Charles Mbiti, who says, kindly, how do we register? I think he's talking of how do they register when it comes to PCAK. You'll be telling them in a short while. And remember, our phone number is 0111-222-0044. Tonight, we are looking into the matter of sexual and gender-based violence. And Advocate Lydia Muthiani is with us, taking us through the legal aspect of all this process. Also, Dr. Myrna Kalsi, a forensic specialist, is also taking us through this process together with Dr. Kirimi Arimi. As we come back, we'll be looking into the capacity of the forensic specialists and department in Kenya, especially on the policy environment. Also, Advocate Lydia Muthiani will be taking us through some of the loopholes that are found within the judicial processes and the system. We are looking into this matter to ensure that as a society, we find sanity and matters that can help the society to grow. I am Cornelius Omuse. Do not go too far.
And let's latch on to something, I don't care how tiny it is, that is a good thing in our life, something that God is doing in us. I want you to decide tonight two things: that you are going to help more people than you've ever helped before, and that you are going to let God work with you every day of your life to be more and more excellent and better at everything that you do. And the more you celebrate the good things, the smaller the bad things are going to become. Come on now.
Enjoy Everyday Life with Joyce Meyer every day at 9 p.m. for encouraging and impacting moments on CAC TV.
A tree begins as a seed.
A marriage is instituted.
You now embark on the work of watering it, cultivating it,
Creating legacies from one generation to the other.
That is what growing families takes.
And for powerful discussions on family as we answer questions, demystify myths, and touch on those controversial topics, tune into CAC TV as we talk a whole lot more about family.
As we grow my family, grow your family, and grow our families.
Because a stable family is a stable society.
Join me, Faith Kaulu, together with Reverend Edward Karanja and Professor Catherine Gashuda on Transforming Families, right here at CAC TV.
Jeremiah 33 verse 3 says, "Call to me and I will answer you and will tell you great and hidden things that you have not known." Join Reverend Elizabeth Kimani and Reverend Henry Kaira here on CAC TV
as they take us through the program Call Unto Me every Wednesday from 8 p.m. You can send your prayer request through the number 0111 220044 and let our reverends pray with you.
Are you a Class 8 or Form 4 candidate at home? Worry not, education has no boundaries. CAC TV is now airing quality education content direct from the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, KICD. Tune in to CAC TV every weekday to watch and be part of the learning experience. Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. Welcome back and many thanks for tuning in to Crime Must Fall Show on CAC TV. Whenever someone is said to it must fall, it means this thing has risen or maybe it is standing, and it's time all of us are saying that crime must fall. Tonight we look into the sexual and gender-based violence, especially during this time of COVID-19 lockdown. A revelation that is coming out is that these matters have been there before, as Dr. Arimi Kirimi is telling us, and also Advocate Lydia Mudhiani and Dr. Mirna Kalsi, who are leading this discussion tonight. We are looking at some of your comments tonight, and we are seeing Edwin Agasa saying that society is exerting too much pressure on men, who then vent it out on women. Men need to divert this pressure in meaningful ways, e.g. creativity, self-employment, etc. That is Edwin Agasa giving those comments. But before we touch anything, we want to hear from Wakili whether it is true that women are to blame because they're demanding than income. That is what Nyongesa is saying. I think he wanted to talk of women are demanding more than maybe what men can offer.
Interesting, you know, so that would mean that I'm also very demanding for money and all sorts of things. Again, this just goes back to these are stereotypes, they are biases, and they're very harmful in the way we think and the way society has been put up. Absolutely. You know, what Edwin is saying is that maybe the way we have conceived the roles or the responsibilities or the attributes of men and women is where we need to go and focus. And that really is where you address the root causes of sexual and gender-based violence. Because if, for instance, all throughout his life, this man has been told you need to be a protector, you need to be a provider. So you have to be able to provide, right? So in that particularly the societal role that he has been given, he feels internal pressure, but then he doesn't, remove that pressure in a healthy way. Who does he go and target? He goes and targets his wife. I mean, if a woman wants to say you need to bring in more money, it could be mere words, because what else has she said? It's words. Yeah. But why does he feel like he is entitled or he has the permission to go and beat her, for instance, right? Or to deprive her of something? That's the problem, because now we're saying this is your role, this is your responsibility, this is the attribute. That's exactly what he's just told us. The attribute of women is to be too demanding. That's a justification for gender-based violence, which is not recognized in law. And for that, you will be held accountable in a criminal court. If you were to assault a woman, for instance, or you were to psychologically torture her in some way for the mere reason that apparently she's too demanding, that's not a legally recognized.
Many thanks, Wakili. There's someone here. We have Rono all the way from Eldoret. He says, first, say hi to panelists. Rono has greeted all of you all the way from Eldoret. And Rono says he's following keenly the discussion. We have experienced kidnapping and later killing of girl child in Moy's Bridge. The perpetrators are targeting age between 8 to 11 years old, and is asking what could be the root causes. Secondly, how or what would we advise or counsel the victims of rape within the society? It is my wish that through the professional body of criminology, they open up offices in every town to assist, advise, and offer counseling within the society. Crime must fall. Dr. Kirimi will be answering that in a short while. I'm bringing in Dr. Myrna Kalsi to answer this question. One of our viewers is saying, is there a difference between domestic abuse and domestic crime? Waswa, all the way from Kaimosi University. Difference between domestic abuse and domestic crime.
I think there's definitely a difference in definition between abuse and crime. I don't know, we can go and have a look at the dictionary, but I think it's a very wide question, you know. I don't know, I think that's more of a psychological, you know, because I think there's a way abuse is defined, probably from a psychological perspective, and different from crime. But for let me say, for forensic doctors, for us, that's a violation. As long as there is some kind of violence, a potential human rights violation has implications as a forensic case. So, you know, I think it's better if I frame it that way.
Many thanks, Dr. Kalsi. Now, another aspect here is the importance of the process of forensic. She will tell us, because at some point when they stand in a court of law, you'll see them quoting the chapters and clauses of the law, that these did not meet the forensic threshold. So it's now your part to tell us the importance of the aspect of proper forensic evidence in the line of identifying a crime, especially on these matters of gender-based violence.
Okay. So, you know, for us as forensic practitioners, the evidence that we desire to produce, that our practice produces, is scientific evidence. So the case circumstances and the scientific evidence, you know, those are the elements of how we work. But not, you'll find, like we were discussing before, not all cases you can end up with scientific evidence, and sometimes, and most of the times, you have a majority of cases that are convicted or not convicted or acquitted, rather, because there is the lack of the scientific evidence, or they are convicting on other evidence that's just not scientific. I think there's just that, because of the nature of our specialization, is that we know that this is science and this is what we go to produce in court. And that's just it, you know. And many forensic cases globally, you will end up finding that there are, forensic science is a nice to add on, but actually getting that scientific evidence may be, depending on where you are, for the kind of case you have. Let me just say, it's a lot of this getting the scientific evidence is really case by case basis. It's really, it's really dependent on case by case.
All right.
Can't just have a blanket. I mean, if you're in the developed world, then you have forensic service delivery is a lot more well developed.
Now, looking at it, let's look at the policy environment. In our context here in Kenya, your profile talks of, you've had the experience even beyond Kenya, that is in East Africa. How is the policy environment, in summary, of the forensic? Is it actually up to date that can enable the learned friends, as they call themselves, to offer the best when it comes to the law? Because we are coming to her when we come from Dr. Kirimi.
Okay, so the policy environment, and I just say that these have been observations over a long period of time, over about 13 years. And the observations is, one, the definitions, like the terminology Okay, there's a terminology of what assault is within the law, but in medicine, assault management is the whole field of healthcare, and it is managed under the specialty of forensic medicine. And what we have now is a policy and is an environment that has enabled mid-level health providers to actually carry out forensic specialist work, and these are not people who are actually trained properly to do that. The other issue is that there is a right capacity building and wrong capacity building. And I would say that a lot of wrong capacity building has happened because to be able to have the forensic capacity to manage a victim, for example, of any kind of assault, and we pay a lot of attention to SGBV because it's sort of like the most pronounced topic to discuss, but it is assault management. So we don't have the right capacity in terms of this person should actually go and do postgraduate education. Even for a doctor who graduates from university, that person should actually not go and touch an assault management case without the proper postgraduate training. So when we go beneath the level of the doctor or the medical practitioner and just give a responsibility, then we are actually diluting, the service delivery for the victim, the survivor, the perpetrator, and this eventually, this kind of botched or junk science will end up in the courts. And the court may not necessarily have the stakeholders within the criminal justice system may not have the, let's say, the technical ability to say, is this person competent?
Now, what is coming up, Daktari? We are still on you. Maina, all the way from Murang'a County. Maina says to ask you, how can a male victim prove that he was sexually molested by a woman? Especially now that you've told us that you go to look at how something was assaulted and everything. How can a man prove?
I mean, until you're with the patient, I would say that all of these are just dependent on the case by case, because we will examine the person and document any injuries that we would find, and in some cases, sometimes you may not have any injuries to visible that you may be able to document. That doesn't mean that what the person is saying that it didn't happen. There are a lot of factors that go into the examination, the documentation, the interpretation of a case, and so that's why you need the education. It is not. This is not just like a copy paste for everybody, which is what the system does. There's a copy paste idea of if it's female, do a high vaginal swab.
Many thanks, Daktari. We'll be coming back to you shortly when you'll be telling us a way forward on matters to do with capacity. We come to Daktari. You're part of psychological healing and the trauma. No man is an island, everyone knows that. And as the figures and also some of the concerns that are coming up here, someone has been assaulted physically, as you've said, that's another pain. They go to hospital, they get treated. But there is that part of internal, the emotional, and all those aspects. In summary, you have to help a brother and a sister outside there who can help another brother and a sister. The modalities and the steps for them to follow to acquire help after being treated in hospital. How can they also heal from psychological traumas?
Okay, the only way to heal psychological trauma is the aspect of getting it out of yourself. It is the emotional energy or pain even launched within a person. So one way of getting rid of it, somebody can cry out. When somebody cries, we get rid of, they peel like layers. We call them layers of psychosis. These that go out. When they cry, and that's why women overcome that one very easily. Men don't cry. That is one way of lessening them. The other one is speaking out about it. Actually, denial makes it remain in you, and it recurs every time.
Remember on that part of speaking it, last time when we had Zipporah Nderitu, the superintendent, she talked deeply on some of the demerits and some of the difficulties that people face when they have to speak out. Whom to speak out?
Well,
they speak out to anybody?
No, not to anybody. There are people who are trained like now, trained counseling psychologists or clinical psychologists. Now, those ones are given skills on how to handle. And through the skills, they will speak out. You know, some of them remain quiet. Actually, it is so traumatic, and sometimes they become numb. And when they become numb, we give them time. Some of them we use even what is called animal assistant therapy, whereby you can even give them some, like a cat. And this person stays with the cat for a long time, and you see the person is opening to it. The thing is that they form a lot of, theories. I mean, hypotheses. Like now, animals, men are beasts. And these people we are talking about, survivors now. They have survived the effect of that attack, violence. And now what they are living after. How are they living? So we want them to lessen that burden, because some of them become even serial killers. You target particular type of this one. You are releasing that revenge on men of that kind. So what we tell them, we help them actually not to internalize them or even externalize on people. Because when they internalize on them, they turn travel into themselves, they hurt themselves, self-hurting behavior. So now, so what I may say at that very time, the professional should sit with them and then, give them time to go to themselves. And there's no other way. They have to speak it out and move it through speaking and through changing the perception. We call it positive mental attitude. So that is now the training that we are saying. People must be trained to know how to handle it. Because at the similar level,
on that part. Someone deep down, all the way from Muranga, another one is in Isiolo, another one is in Lodo Turkana.
Yes.
You've talked about specialists, but they don't know now. Where are these specialists? How do we find them? Who are they? How do we access them? In which facilities? And what directions? Kindly help our viewers to find a way forward before Wakili comes in on some crucial issues.
This time, let me say, like in Kenya, we have a Kenya Counseling, and Psychologists Association. Now we have trained, according to that one, I'm also part of it. They are trained to take people through psychological, debriefing, that aspect there. So if they look for those ones, because they are everywhere in those places there, definitely they can get them. But then they are victims now. The families are the ones that can assist in doing that. And you don't force these people to talk. In fact, sometimes we let them, get to themselves, process all the way, but then we guide them now in talking.
How to move now? Yes. The professional counselors, are they found at the county levels, and what departments, and the access, all those things? That's what our viewer still wants to get from you, the counselor.
Definitely, they are there.
At the county level, under what department? In hospitals, at the county administration, they would like to know where to find these counselors.
It is like, this. Let me not answer for the KCPA. Because it has got its professionals there, although I'm a member. But every province or every district, the KCPA is represented. And if you go to gender department or this department call, you may get that assistance. Because first of all, you start from the office, and then you are directed to those people who are accredited. And because this profession is very serious, we don't want, as Dr. Kaus has said, that there's negative capacity, where you even employ somebody to be in charge of that particular program, and this person doesn't know has no training in that psychology of that kind of thing. But then when you go to those ones in charge, KCPA is able to tell these are the people that can take through, or even psychologists, a clinical psychologist like us, he can actually also assist in that one, so they can get help from
many things. Daktari. Now, Peter Gitahi, our viewer all the way from Narok County, says you must consider also the rights of a boy child. And Wakili, as we welcome you in, you have to tell us something about the woman. People are saying they're expecting much from men and also the boy child.
I mean, I find it very interesting, and allow me this time, that normally whenever we are having discussions on gender-based violence, it becomes a conversation around the boy child and men. So I would like us to just internalize that and just recognize it right now. If I can tell you, gender-based violence disproportionately affects women and girls. We are not saying it doesn't affect men and boys, but it disproportionately affects women and girls. It's because of the subjugated position of women and girls in this society. If I was to list for you the number of roles and attributes and the opportunities I'm told as a woman, I should not enter, I should dress a certain way, I should not speak at a certain level, I should not speak when I'm speaking with men, I should not, during functions, men sit here, women sit there. Oh, this is a woman who's so opinionated, she's so demanding, she's so this, she's so that. Everything is informed, even policy decisions. When it comes to temporary special measures, which everybody else calls, affirmative action, it's because it was informed by a history of subjugation. Women are not equal to men. And I'm talking about formal equality, but also substantive equality in practice and in law. So here I am going to speak about the thing which affects women and girls disproportionately. We can have a conversation about men and boys, but I can tell you, even when you look at statistics, 97% of gender-based violence cases are reported by women are against women. And then you would have the 3% against men and boys. So let's have that discussion with that background, right? Because the boy child, the only reason why we keep on talking about it is because we are busy removing the privilege that the boy child has enjoyed this whole time. The only thing women and girls are fighting for is equal space. We're asking for equal opportunities so that we can have equality in results.
Many thanks, Daktari. Now, our time is almost up, but there's something that we really want to establish from you before we get the parting shot, both from Daktari and also Dr. Mirna. What are some of these notable, the crucial, the most disturbing intricacies in the judicial processes when it comes to handling matters to do with sexual and gender-based violence? And so, probably some of your recommendations to all stakeholders, including the forensic scientists and also the clinicians, every player in this matter.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. It really is, I will try to speak about it in like threes. When you think about the challenges which are there, which are barriers to access to justice for gender-based violence victims, the first thing is capacity. This is a highly technical field to be in. And especially in thinking about the fact that, for instance, when Dr. Kalsi talked about forensic evidence management, that is not something which is available in every single case. Why? Because forensic capacities, as it is in Africa, and in Kenya especially, are quite low. For instance, during the elections, how many women were able to get out so that they can get their medical evidence or the forensic medical evidence collected? That means that their case will fall in court? No, it shall not, right? So when you're thinking about these highly technical skills, is also to think about the violations, the nuances of the violations, and the stigma which is faced by victims, the barriers which are faced by victims. So you cannot require them to have the same threshold of evidence, for instance, as you would in any other ordinary crime case. Dr. Kirimi has given us a very good breakdown, right, of the kind of trauma-based evidence which could be presented in court, for instance, in the absence of forensic evidence, right? In Kenya, we have a specific exemption in the Evidence Act which states, in sexual violence cases, if the only evidence which is available is that of the testimony of the victim, it should be enough. As long as the court will look at all surrounding circumstances and apply their legal minds to it. We do not need somebody to sit down and say in the medical report that this person, had penetration and they suffered this level of injuries as a way of proving, right? And those are the things which are needed to be understood in this very highly technical skill.
Many thanks, Wakili. Let's get the parting shot from Dr. Mirna Kalsi. Your recommendations as far as policy environment of forensic evidence gathering and science is concerned. What do you tell the authorities to do on this matter?
Okay, thank you for that. I would say that there are a lot of competing narratives when it comes to the issue of sexual and gender-based violence. You know, there's a narrative that this agenda issue is a women's issue, you know, but significantly this is a forensic problem. And I think we have a challenge when it comes to, because a lot of the funding that comes for this is coming through the non-state sector. And there I would actually challenge government to just say, you know, if you want forensic evidence service delivery, I mean, you want proper forensic service delivery to strengthen the capacity for access to justice for these, you know, different groups of vulnerable people, then you have to invest in it. You know, science means you gotta invest. You gotta invest in the people. You gotta invest in the infrastructure. You gotta invest in the collaboration, because there are a lot of different stakeholders in different ministries that are required on board. With the issue of development aid, is they have the advantage of setting, you know, influencing what priorities get set. And that means we really need to not think of forensics as expensive or as a luxury service, but rather, because we are a context that has a very high forensic caseload in terms of sexual and gender-based violence, and also other kinds of different forensic case categories, then there needs to be an investment, not just on the advocacy level, which is great, but at the various different levels, so that when you create kind of funding systems, they are balanced. And right now, I would say that the favor is not, the scale is not in the favor of forensic evidence. So you find issues like emergency contraception and pregnancy overtake highly the issue of access to justice when it comes to these cases.
Daktari Myrna Khalsi, and in summary, Dr. Kirimi Arimi, a problem has been seen. You've actually come out to tell us all that has happened. Have you come up with maybe any report? Because it's not a one-man show, and probably maybe working with authorities, when probably, and what are people expecting, especially your partnership with the government?
Yeah, thank you. Where crime has gotten at this time, if criminologists do not embrace, you know, integrated aspect or even modern technology of fighting crime, crime will go ahead of criminologists. And therefore, through research, we want to assist, say, the government to know some of these areas where they can control this. And recently, the PSAC actually carried out a research in Nairobi of sex and gender-based violence. And this research will be launched on Saturday at Milele here by the PS Public Service and Gender, that is Professor Margaret Kobe.
Cabinet Secretary.
Cabinet, sorry, that one. It's a Cabinet Secretary. And we will be launching that report, because we realize that at this time we must get scientifically based, you know, evidence to give to people and say, look here, this is what is happening. But all in all, let me say that there is no excuse, because the person who is onto whom crime is meted, this particular person, though living in this society, is living with a certain aspect that is no longer like a human being. Now, let me note as we part, what the police is doing. I know that one, I can add it there. Police has been called police force, but this time it is police service, National Police Service. Now, there is this thing called Polycare. That is police coming together with the civilian stakeholders, and it is called Polycare. It's an initiative of the National Police Service. They want to intensify on the fight. How can they make it effective, the fight against sex and gender-based violence at this time? You know, at first you are blaming them that they are not that and that way. Lucky enough, I'm actually in that particular Polycare. I myself there, and I know the work like this Deputy Inspector General of Police, Mr. Edward Bogo, is doing. He is committed so much actually at the background, trying to help us to come with this Polycare Polycare as an option in trying to make it, to eliminate these crimes. Because we will have a place now, a residential, where the investigation will be done there, helping even the survivors, helping even to rehabilitate the offenders. We want to see a society. And Madam Zipporah, that is Superintendent Zipporah, who was here the other day, actually she's the one on the ground also coordinating that one. We normally call her Madam Polycare. Because this is, I think, an initiative that has a lot of hope. When the issue comes up, we will actually lessen this one, because sometimes you say in the court, in the police, the agenda desk, sometimes people keep on being changed every time. They are not trained to handle that one and that one. So as a solution to this, the police is very much assisting, and I want to thank so much the DIG for supporting this Polycare that is coming up. It is a union of police and police and stakeholders of civilians, where we have FIDA, we have DISANS, we have PSAC. PSAC is a major stakeholder there. That's
Many
why
thanks, Daktari, for that clear elaboration, and probably lastly, a parting shot from our Ebo Akili.
Thank you, Cornelius. So with me, it'll be 3 points. The first is we have to remember that we must address the root causes of gender-based violence. And this is all the harmful gender stereotypes, the social norms, the biases, the belief systems, the attitudes, which have perpetuated the notion that women are inferior and men are superior. In that way, it has undergirded gender inequality and discrimination. And those are the root causes of gender-based violence. The second is that we have to address the drivers, the push factors, the vulnerabilities which make women and girls especially vulnerable to gender-based violence, including poverty, disempowerment, insecurity, the proliferation of small arms. That the government must prioritize. The third is really around our national values and principles. We must go back to our constitution and ask ourselves what brings us together as a society. Equality, non-discrimination, justice. That has to be the thing which defines how we relate to each other. We can no longer be bystanders. When you see a woman being catcalled, when you hear her being abused, or you see a woman being stripped naked or sexually assaulted and you do nothing. I remember a video 2 years ago of a woman who was being raped in full sight on Kirinyaga Road. And what the bystanders did was just record it. They did not intervene. Then where does that individual consciousness come from? Our communal consciousness, our national consciousness. That way, we would be able to improve access to justice, including making it a speedy access to justice, for instance, in the judiciary. Otherwise, we would not have an election case on sexual and gender-based violence for those victims who faced this violence so many years ago, for a case which has been in court for over 7 years and has still not been decided by the judiciary. We really need to ask ourselves, where is the consciousness?
Many thanks, Wakili. This seems to be an endless, an interesting, an emotional, and a discussion that requires the participation of everyone. And even due to time, Mr. Rish Arun Parekh, we may not have an opportunity to answer your question, but you've just asked, are we right to say that more than 60% of the SGBV cases are never reported to the authorities, and how do we curb that? On Saturday, as the Professional Criminologists Association will be launching their report, these are promises we make to you that will be able also to deduce this part and be able to answer to you. Advocate Lydia Mudhiani has taken us through the legal aspect. Also, Dr. Kirimi Arimi, who is a criminologist and also a clinical psychologist, has taken us through the part of psychological trauma, victimization, and the way forward. Also, Dr. Mirna Kalsi has taken us through the issue to do with forensic investigations and evidence. It's been a wonderful discussion, and we appreciate your overwhelming responses, your feedback, and your questions, because on CAC TV, in collaboration with Professional Criminologists Association of Kenya, you come first and we do not take any concern for granted. On behalf of CAC TV, our technical team led by Dixon Kilonzo, our content manager, director, fellow presenters, and everyone, the administration who took part towards making this production a success, we say thank you. Till next time, from me, Cornelius Omuse, I wish you a good night.